Your host, Tess Brigham. So let's make sense of the mess together. My guest today is Brian Morgan, founder of Think Deeply, Write Clearly, and my personal writing coach who makes me think way more than I really want to. Brian's mission is to help people make sense of the world through. Brian's on a mission to help people make sense of the world through their writing, and he's really good at it. After years of editing billion-dollar reports and teaching at university, he now helps teams and leaders write clearly, think critically, and stop wasting time fixing confusing emails and messy reports. Hello. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, my friend.
Yes.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here with you.
So tell me about your journey going from editing these billion-dollar contracts and reports to doing what you're doing now.
Yeah. If it's all right with you, maybe we'll start even earlier.
Okay.
And so I'm 51 years old. I live in New York. And when I first got to New York, it was to be an actor. And what I don't think we say out loud enough is that, first of all, I made absolutely no hay with acting and theater and things. I had a very mediocre career in regional theater that nobody would benefit from trying to locate the four the four websites that may actually have something on it of me. It's not worth the time, folks. Not even ChatGPT could. And so right, but what I will say was artists, right? People who are inclined toward the arts are if they are good at it, and this is something I had to learn. If they are good at it, become very good observers of the world. And if I were to just kind of briefly, say, what is it that people hire me for now? It's that we do not teach in school. We do not teach in business. We do not teach in any. We forget that language is going to be in some way a delivery of an assumption of the world, and we forget how did we arrive at those assumptions and what is the process of those assumptions. And so I would say it starts earlier. That certainly, working on the World Trade Center and Moynihan Station and some of these large projects in New York, people wanted the clarity of that sense making in those projects so they could be funded and built, and that's obviously true. But I think the reason I was in that opportunity to begin with, period, full stop, is that people trusted my sense making of the world. And so they trust our sense making of the world through a very predictable process, which is simple, not easy, which is if someone is tasked with observing the world and then tasked with making sense of the observations, do other people volunteer for that understanding of the world, or do they say, you don't know what the hell you're talking about? And so that really all of a sudden that gets to being very human. That I would say my business success is greatly related to my understanding of the human condition, and then clarity in writing and communication and marketing and sales and anything else that one might be delivering language around is going to be a reflection of quality sense making of the world that other people say, I trust that sense making. That sense maker is someone who I want at my table. I want in my world. I want their influence. And so that might be where I'd frame where I think you might be going with that question. But does that hold with you?
Yes. So do you find that the majority of the people that you work with have had some sort of past or experience in the arts?
No.
Huh. Okay. Because what I was going to say to you and is that, and you wouldn't have even known it before you knew me because it's not on my LinkedIn, but, I had a whole other career working in Hollywood, and I saw myself as someone who was in the quote unquote in the arts for a long, long time. And I think it's interesting when you're talking about your acting career, because it's such an interesting thing when it comes to the arts and how I think, especially when you're young, how you see it. It's always like there's only one way. It's like being huge, being a superstar. And and what I've found over the years is when I left LA and I kind of gave that, what I felt like I gave that life up to pursue other things, I thought, okay, that's it. I'm never going to do anything creative ever again. And it wasn't until I started building my own business, I was like, oh, wait a second. I can be
Yes.
creative again. Oh, interesting.
Yes.
And I think that's a big thing that a lot of people miss in business and in building businesses or doing anything, is that there's a tremendous, even if you're writing reports, even if you're putting together a slide deck, creativity is important.
Yes.
And but it's interesting, and so you've always felt like the artists are just trained observers, or just have
So
that way of, yeah.
yeah, sorry to
Mhm.
jump in. I guess I would frame this slightly differently, but I love where you're going with it. Like I think the direction of the question is fantastic. Um, if I were to be fully frank, if I were to blurt out my my thoughts on this, most artists don't want to be artists; they want to be famous and known.
Mhm.
And so the minute and that was me too, right?
Mhm.
So in fairness to anybody who's going through that, most writers don't want to write well. They want to be
Mhm.
famous and known, right? And so most people want accolade for something they already do, and
Mhm.
very very few people perform well enough in any way, singing, acting, dancing, etc., where they don't have to put in extraordinary effort to become expert at it.
Mhm.
And very few people write well enough where they don't have to put in extraordinary effort to become expert at it. And so then you realize that as that attrition of people falls off, you're like, well, why does that attrition fall off? And it's like, because they weren't in it to become expert at observing the world, and they were in it to be well known,
Mhm.
famous, rich, and then figured out that that was not going to be their pathway. What I hear you indicating, though, is that if you've really got an affinity for the subject, right, like the task,
Mhm.
I really like reading scripts. I like interpreting scripts. I
Mhm.
really like I have if I've got an affinity for that, does that affinity make you more creative in everything else that you do? Absolutely. But far too many people get into theater or scripts or anything else, not because they have a great desire to understand and communicate their understanding of the world or interpretations of a role or whatever. They have a desire to it so that people will put them on movie posters and be and so I think that's why I don't have a bunch of artistic clients, because the people who get into artistic professions are not actually inclined to think the way I think about things.
Mhm.
They're far more inclined to be 50 years old and up against battling the same ego uh, difficulties that they were battling in their 20s at 50,
Mhm.
now with families, than they are to be fully engaged in how well do I make sense of the world, and how can I turn that sense making into a positive for the world. That's not a question that arises enough in
Mhm.
artistic professions. But does that
Mhm.
hold with your experience?
Yeah.
How do you hear that?
Yeah, I mean, the actors that I've known over the years that I've worked with, I think that there was always some element of the fame, because if you're going to leave your town and go to LA, you want to be known, I mean, because you can be a regional actor, you can live in, this area of Arizona, and be the local person. I mean, I'm here in the Bay Area, and San Francisco definitely has their local people that are well known
Mhm.
here. So going to LA, I think that alone means I want to do this, and I want to do this on a bigger level.
Mhm.
Um, I felt like the majority of the actors that I worked with did want to do they did want to do good work, and they did want to act. There were definitely those that you were like, oh, you're here because you're attractive and someone gave you a part and now you're acting. And so there's definitely those people. But I always get a little frustrated by these actors who are like, oh, no, 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 leave me alone. And it's a little bit like, the paparazzi. And it's like, but that's part of it. Then you should have stayed in your small town. That whole kind of push pull of,
Yeah.
if you are going to LA or New York to do this thing, then you really are saying, I want to do it in a big way, which there's nothing wrong with that at all. I firmly believe in that, for
Yeah.
sure.
If we got a minute for it, I
Yeah.
can share a story that I think is potentially useful to put language here. I agree that many people who have suboptimal intentions work optimally, right?
Hmm.
I don't know that those two things necessarily collide. But I can tell you my own story where it started to make sense to me. I was in a regional play with the guy who at that time was the most published playwright in Samuel French's history. His name was Fred Carmichael, and he was in his 70s. And we were doing Sunshine Boys
Mm.
and Neil Simon's play, and he was wonderful for me. He was a great mentor. He was a great friend. And Fred, he's 70, and we're backstage one night, and he's looking over the script, and I'm teasing him. I'm in my 20s, and I'm like, "You old man, you don't know your lines. You got to go over your lines. You don't have memory." And
Hmm.
I'm giving him a hard time, and he says, "Do you want to learn something, or do you want to be a jerk?" And I. And I said, no, tell me what you're thinking. And he says, um, and he says, I go over the lines every night because the first time we do this or we block it or whatever, we we're just trying to get through it.
Hmm.
We're just trying to make sure that I got to memorize it. I got to get to where I got to go. You got to get to where you're going to go. And he says, but now I'm really investigating the play. Why did the playwright give me a period here, not a comma? I've been playing it like a comma. And so the playwright's telling me that it's a faster moment. And because it's a faster moment, my intention on that moment is different than, and so he's clarified for that to me right now. And I'm going to play it differently tonight, and you're going to respond differently
Mm.
because I've played it differently. And it's a more true representation of what's written for us to be done. And so there's somebody, that guy got paid the same amount. He
Hmm.
got paid he did not have to be doing that, right? But that's a dedication, and he was in his 70s and he was still going, and he was teaching me a heck of a lot. And almost instantly, Tess, I didn't want to be an actor anymore because first
Really?
of all, when I took his advice, which I did, my reviews went through the roof. Again, if you chat GPT, you'd find two of them. But my reviews went through the roof, and my desire to do it went through the floor because
Mm.
I realized that all of the power of everything, the transference of a story to the audience, the power wasn't in the actor where I thought it was. The power was in the writer.
Hmm.
And so it was almost instant. I learned how to get out of my own way on the stage, and then I was like, if I really want to be sending an interpreted understanding of the world to an audience, I better start writing.
Hmm.
And that would become
Yeah.
a very new career path, which was much more correct for me.
So this actually leads into my next question, which is, you say most writing problems are actually thinking problems.
Yes.
So what do you mean by that?
So language is always going to be a reference to something else, and so I don't have it with me, but normally I have a coffee cup that says
Hmm.
this is not a coffee cup. and and so, but this is also my first lecture in my English classes, that language is always a reference to something else. And so getting clear language out is fairly easy. Recognizing that we have power over the references that our language infers is hard. And so I would say we do a massive disservice to people when we say, if you write a 5-paragraph essay with an introduction, I mean, it's just nonsense. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
just the stupidest stuff that anybody's ever come up with. But this is what we do, and what we in essence do is say, if you have a clear thought, you can get an A. And I'm like, that sounds like the stupidest thing I've ever heard. If you have a thought that is worthy of expression to someone else and you express it clearly, you should get an A.
Mm-hmm.
If you just have a clear thought that is stupid and asinine and unhelpful to a society and a reflection of your suboptimal way of observing the world, you should get an F.
Mm-hmm.
Why, why, why would we celebrate the clarity of your foolishness?
Mm.
And so, and that to me is just a huge miss as a matter of education. We forget that language is a reference to the quality of a thought, and the thing that has to be expressed is the quality of the thought. It's the thinking that has to move into the society, not the clarity. And so the
Mm-hmm.
minute we divorce writing or speaking from thinking, we've done a major disservice to what is actually going to push a society, push a project, push someone's business, push someone's career forward.
Mm-hmm. But aren't I'm going to push back a little bit. People that have these, you're saying foolish ideas, isn't all that subjective? It seems foolish to you, but they might think this is genius.
Sure, invite me into your framework so that I can understand. Right, this is the difficulty that I think we actually have, and I appreciate the pushback because it allows us to go deeper into it. The I would say, um, okay, so the human experience, if
Mm-hmm.
we were to just kind of get there, is one of fundamental ignorance, and so I am a suboptimal mechanism to understand the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm 51 years old. I'm spent too much time on a computer. My eyesight is going down. I only hear in certain hearing bands. I only see in certain light bands, and so my suboptimal, this is my access point to a 13 billion year old process, of which I have 51, if I'm lucky, 100 years to try and make sense of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm ignorant, and I will remain ignorant for as long as I live.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the human condition, and it is also the human condition of anybody that I might be speaking with. So if somebody believes that they have the ability to tell me reality, this is what happens in politics a lot.
Mm-hmm.
This is what happens in marketing or sales. If somebody believes that they have the right to tell me reality, I want to say, what are your observations of your understanding of reality to tell me that to be true?
Mm-hmm.
And so don't give me the language. Don't tell me you can 10x my business or any of that other nonsense. Tell me what you observe about business, what you observe about the marketplace, what you observe about good sales language or good product understanding or good placement of products or something that I believe that you can actually 10x a business. And
Mm-hmm.
if they say, well, I've got a lot of testimonials, I've 10x a business before, I'd say, I don't want to talk to you. That it's going to be the frame of observation and assessment of that frame that we all play inside. And if somebody is saying, I don't have to explain to you my frame or observation of the frame, we see this in politics all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
We see this with we see this with tax rates are too high, tax rates are too low. Zoran Mandami in New York right now. There shouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
billionaires. Tell me why you believe these things. Don't tell me what you believe. Tell
Mm-hmm.
me how well do you, if there aren't billionaires, how do you make sense of an economic world? How bring me to what that means to you. How well do you observe and understand the economics of a world, of the markets, of how do you get it,
Mm-hmm.
or are you saying things without getting it? And we're going to trust you on your ability to frame information, not yell about it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's that fundamental issue that because human beings are ignorant, we have to frame why and what we are observing in the world, how we are assessing what we're observing in the world, and then other people can say, I trust that observation. I think that you make good sense of the world, and I volunteer for your sense making. I think you can help me in the business. I think you can serve the city or the government well. I think you
Mm-hmm.
can, but you have to share me, you have to give me the sense making, not the conclusion. And I think it's fundamentally misunderstood, and it puts the language now not on the conclusion. Let me tell you what you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
It puts it on. Let me tell you the problem as I see the problem. The
Yes.
problem as I see the problem is X, Y, and Z, and that's why I'm concerned about. Probably if Zoran Mandami was more thoughtful about this, he wouldn't be saying there shouldn't be billionaires. He'd probably be saying something closer to people who have benefited from the system would also be able to create a system in which they can benefit and other people can benefit by being taxed enough to have an education system
Mm-hmm.
and therefore whether or not that person is a billionaire is not the point, but whether or not their taxation is appropriate is more the point. And so right and so it's always a question of can I trust your frame for thinking
Mm-hmm.
versus your conclusions, and I do think that's sort of fundamentally
Yeah.
misunderstood.
I absolutely agree with you. My question then is what the doesn't but that feels like that goes against the world that we're living in, because the thing is that the way Mandani can, he the way he attracts people is to say there shouldn't be billionaires.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what you're getting at, is because what you're asking of people is do a little bit more research, do a little bit more reading. I mean, I think, right, the bulk of how most people take things in today are in these quick snippets, whether it's on social media or scanning a website or hearing it from somebody, something like that.
Yes.
So then
I,
what do we do?
I So, I mean, it's a big, massive, wonderful, let's have 16 glasses of wine question.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think we educate children.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that's the game plan here. But I have no. I'll just speak politically, just because why not piss everybody off on your
Yeah,
podcast? I
it's okay.
apologize. But I have no more respect for Zoran Mandami, where I'm more inclined on his side of the aisle than I have for, say, Donald Trump. They both have the same problem, which is that they speak unthoughtful things into the world to get attention. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
how about both of you grow up?
Mm.
And so I have absolutely like neither of them will ever get my vote either.
Mm.
And so I want someone who can think through the problem and solve it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I understand, and I teach in a college, so I understand the appeal of both of these people. For young men, Donald Trump; for young women, in particular, Zoran Mandami. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I understand the appeal. I understand they say they get a lot of attention. I understand they say things that are emotionally, but they don't understand problems or solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say my job in that college is who's got the language of sense making, not who's got your attention. Who's
Mm-hmm.
got the language of sense making? Who describes the problems accurately? Who's a good sense maker of the world? And so that to me is an education issue, and I don't think we've done it well for 50 years. And so why do we have this world now where these people can sort of skate through on abstract foolishness, grabbing attention for themselves at great damage
Mm-hmm.
to the conversation in a society, because we haven't. I think it's because we haven't educated people in order to be thoughtful recipients of that information. And if I like this is my life, right? This
Mm-hmm.
is this is what I do. But that to me is like we have to take that on. The
Mm-hmm.
education system has to take that on. The business sector has to take that on, because the business sector is not confused by any of this nonsense. The business sector knows exactly what's happening with both of these people.
Mm-hmm.
And so we better start putting language to it, and start putting thoughtful language to our understandings of the world, so that that's also in there as well, and maybe the center starts to hold again. But that's unfortunately the best answer I have. But I think it's education. But I'd be interested in your own thoughts. Where do you go with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's, and I have no idea. I mean, I think when you were speaking, I was thinking about how how much education has changed, and how the the sort of way we're teaching kids now is, oh, we have all this technology, they have short attention spans, so how do we teach them because of the technology and short attention spans? And it sounds like what you're saying is, no, it's not about accommodating where we are today in our world. It's getting back to some of these basics of critical thinking, and yeah, yeah, your attention span might be different, but I'm going to challenge you a bit to push yourself.
Well, I think that's part of it. I think there's also people who say deeply thoughtful things in short attention spans.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say Jordan Peterson, love him or hate him, is very good at it.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Scott Galloway, love him or hate him, is
Mm-hmm.
very good at it. That
Mm-hmm.
and so I do think that if we understand how we optimize multiple factors of information, which is what I really think Scott Galloway and Jordan Peterson are doing. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That if we optimize multiple factors of information, Galloway may be more economic and personal, and Peterson may be more psychological and political. But it doesn't really matter if we can optimize multiple sources of information and make good sense of those information and speak deeply into our understanding of that information quickly. That
Mm-hmm.
inside of, well, listen, here's how the markets are going to respond to this, and this is why, and somebody really quickly gets you there. You can have a great 1 minute short that's really thoughtful and amazing and perfect
Mm-hmm.
right inside someone's attention span. So the difficulty is not that the attention span is there. We don't have the thinkers for it. We've got very
Mm-hmm.
few thinkers for it. And so that's where I would sort of aim the attention, is like, well, let's just all, instead of jumping into oceans and saying enormously stupid shit, let's say really thoughtful things inside the attention span that we have, and let people know that we can deeply optimize information, and that people can benefit even in a short attention span. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
possible. We just don't have the thinkers.
So do you feel like is is it each person's, I don't know, goal to make sense of the world? Do you feel like that's what we're here? Each of us is here to make sense of the world, and some people are meant to make sense of the world and share that on a larger level. Some people are meant to make sense of the world and just keep it to themselves.
Maybe, but I wouldn't say anyone has an obligation to share it.
Mm-hmm.
I would say everyone has an obligation, consciously or subconsciously, to understand it.
Mm.
And so the threat to me is that we actually don't recognize that we are sense making mechanisms.
Mm.
And if we don't, so we do a terrible thing, right? Like, this is client's cup, so little shout out to I didn't do that on purpose, but
Cultivate
this is
mojo.
cultivating mojo. This is
Yes.
this is Phil sent a mug, so this is Phil's mug. But anyway, so if I am in the fifth grade, right? Like, just think about how this works, and someone says this is a coffee cup, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then what I'm really saying is, my parents taught me this is a coffee cup,
Mm-hmm.
and my fifth grade teacher taught me this is a coffee cup, and now, Tess, I command you to see this as a coffee cup. Right. So I'm saying there is a reality that I understand it, that my parents understand it, that my fifth grade teacher understands, and I'm commanding you. Right. And so this is stupid and philosophical and nonsense around a coffee cup.
Mm-hmm.
But think about, right. What we're really saying is, we're not sense makers of this ceramic thing.
Mm-hmm.
This ceramic thing exists in reality, and if you don't know it, you don't get an A, right? Like I'm telling you what that is,
Mm-hmm.
and right, and you don't have an experience that you make sense of it for. I'm telling you what it is, and if you don't know that, then you fail, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
so that's the mechanism through which and it's horrible. And we think this is all philosophical bullshit until someone says Democrats are assholes,
Mm.
and then you go, why is that? Wait, that's rude. Like, why would you say that? And it's like, wait a minute. If Democrats are assholes is a conclusion without a frame of understanding for why we have concluded it, and it makes us assholes, so is this is a coffee cup, Tess. It's a
Mm-hmm.
conclusion without a frame for understanding about how it works. Why does this function well as a coffee cup? I have
Mm-hmm.
to be able to explain. It's ceramic, it's got a handle, it's not going to burn your hand because it's got looser molecules in it. I have to be able to explain to you my understanding of how the world works so that you can say, yes, I trust that understanding. I would put my coffee in that. Or yes, I trust that understanding. I would believe that if Democratic messaging or if Republican messaging were to be approached a different way, it'd be more effective. And so this it is the sense making of this thing, not the conclusion of it, that makes it live in the world. And I think that is misunderstood.
Mm-hmm.
And because that is misunderstood, the second order problem is how many people are going to think thoughtfully and put
Mm-hmm.
that into short attention span things so that we can deepen the understanding of the world. The first difficulty is we got to stop saying this is a coffee cup, or there is a world that your fourth grade teacher or your parents or someone knows, and we've got to start saying these are the assessments of the world that people have come to over time, but we are fundamentally ignorant people, and this is the best we're doing right now, and it's a constantly moving target of sense making, and we're
Mm-hmm.
involved in that sense making movement. And I think that would be a huge motion toward actually solving a lot of the problems that we have, because I
Mm-hmm.
think while we don't have that, the Mandamis and the Trumps and everybody else gets political power because they look for, I'll just tell you what's wrong with the world. And people go, oh, great, fantastic, you're going to solve my problems. And they won't. They're not smart enough.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, and so because they're not smart enough, we have this, we now have this deficit where it's like, I thought you were going to solve the problem. It's like they never indicated that they were smart enough to solve these problems. They never indicated it, but we
Yeah.
believed it because they presented it that way, and we're a bunch of sheep. And so let's go get the sense making. What do you see in the world, and how do you make sense of the thing that you see in the world? And then let's get it inside the attention span, and we might start doing different things in the world.
So for me, I always think of things in the framework of mental health, right? And so as you're speaking, a lot of what it reminds me a lot of emotional intelligence and the work that I do with my clients, and that there is this innate want and desire and need to give it over to someone else, to be like, great, you're going to solve my problem, you're going to 10x my business, you're going to do this, right? Great, perfect, I can just move on. But in actuality, the sort of thing that we all have to learn is that we have to think about what do we believe in, what do we think is right or wrong for us, that and so much of that is about um just being emotionally intelligent and being willing to do the work to be emotionally intelligent, because a lot of what you're talking about, you're asking people to challenge themselves, and that's very much what you're doing when you're in therapy or you're working on yourself in any way, shape, or form. Is you're challenging yourself to make sense of your world, and you're challenging yourself to um, kind of go against that desire instinct to want to just throw your hands up and give it over and let go, because we all want to do that, and fighting that instinct also to feel like everything is so black and white. Because
Yes.
when things are black and white, life is easy. Math and other things, like it's either. That's why I've worked with a lot of engineers over the years, and for them, this stuff is hard because they want to know what the answer is, and
Yes.
it's really hard to say to someone, there really isn't an answer, there isn't closure, there isn't a perfect breakup or makeup, or there you're never, marriage is messy, like all of the raising kids, all of this stuff that nobody seems to, that feels very scary. I don't think it's so much like people, they don't necessarily want to hear it. It's almost just like, oh God, that's that's scary. That's too much in the gray.
Yeah. Well, I love the question, and I think you're right at why we have a lot of the systems of the world that function and don't function, right? Because of this issue.
Mm-hmm.
What I might throw over is, it's I think it's far more dangerous to lie to ourselves than it is to accept that we are fundamentally ignorant and that the quality of our lives will be based on the sense making we make of the observations we make and the assessments that we make of those observations.
Mm-hmm.
And so that feels like, oh my gosh, there's no rules, but there are rules. There's the rules of how curious are we to go learn about the world, and how investigative are we to investigate the world that we learn about. And that can be deeply stabilizing. I'll tell you a story, and I appreciate you had the nicest response to this in our very first session, and so
Oh,
thank you.
what did I say?
But in 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 one of my about the professor things, and one of the things that I do, I tell this story, and so I can take a second to tell it here. But I remember being a young man. I was maybe 15 years old, and I was looking at this church of people that I was going to church with, and I remember thinking, I don't know a single happy person in here. Like my parents are, my dad was gay. He was lying to himself about it. My mom was way too Christian, and she's 81, and she'll continue to lie to herself about that. And it doesn't mean that Christians are wrong. It just means the way that my mom approaches it is very head bangy kind of repeat the same patterns, non-reflective way that happens to make it more difficult for her than more comforting. And so my parents were terrible role models in a lot of ways, and I knew all the kids in that church. I went to school. I don't know a happy person. Like, I don't know a happy family here. I don't know. And so I remember going down to the church bathroom. I was 15 years old, and I sat on the seat down toilet. And I remember saying, I'm not going to get up until I have a different way of looking at the world. And what I said was, I'm not going to make any decision until I personally have experience of it being accurate. So no more am I going to take Jesus is this, or God says this, or whatever. I'm going to take those things, and I'm going to reflect on them, and I'm going to reflect on them, and I'm going to see if they make sense to me. And if they make sense to me, then I'm going to make decisions based on that sense making, not on someone else's understanding of it, and not my parents, or not a priest, or anyone else. And I would do that in church, and I would do that in basically every part of my life, including my parents, and it drove them absolutely bonkers. But the benefit of that is I'm 15 years old, and this full sentence comes into which is, you're going to be wrong a lot. Right? Like,
Yeah.
because that's baked into the cake, right? Like there's no way to look at the world that way and then question everything, and then say, oh, that's why things are the way they are. Right? Like, I mean, like, I've learned that's why they say, treat people well, because now I don't have any friends because I was an asshole to everybody for forever. Like, I've learned that. And so right, and so you're going to be wrong a lot. And I would argue the quality of our lives really ultimately comes down to our comfort zone with that. That are we comfortable saying, I'm going to be wrong a lot?
Yeah.
And I would say, the minute you say, oh, Tess, I really thought that this way of marketing your business was going to function, and I was wrong. We should probably look at that again. Then we say, oh yeah, well, I guess we allow ourselves the ability to be wrong. We allow and then we allow ourselves the ability to fix it. And so we don't have to identify with this or that, or my religion, or my this, or my politics, my political party, or whatever. I get to be a person who's of experience in the world, recognizing fundamentally that I'm ignorant in the world, and I have to get more and more sense making of the world as I go along. And that sounds more dangerous, but it's actually a hell of a lot easier compared to all the lies that we tell ourselves throughout most of our lives, in my experience. But does that make sense, or how do you?
Yeah. No, and I remember what I said, because this was, to me, it felt like it's a beautiful story, but it felt very deep. And it was sort of like how you started this course. Where, you were just introducing yourself, like, hi, hello, I'm this. And then now I'm going to tell you this very deep, intimate, vulnerable story about myself. And I think that, again, we always look at things through our own lenses. So I have no idea if you're architect clients, engineering clients, people that have different businesses, if they looked at it differently than I did. But what I saw was just like, wow, this is okay. We're diving in. We're getting to know you. But it is. And it struck me because you don't meet many 15-year-olds that have the ability to do that. Like, just to make that kind of sense, to see those things on that level. And so it is interesting just to hear that, because I got a lot when I remember my junior high teacher telling me that I was intuitive. I had to go look up what the word meant. I didn't even know what it meant. But it's so interesting that I'm always fascinated, because everybody that I talk to who does this kind of work, who wants to make sense of things, they all have some sort of story of being younger and having either this aha moment or this recognition of, oh, I think I see things differently than other people. I think I'm seeing things, maybe in my mind, it just felt like my teacher was saying, you see things deeper and maybe different few, and it's a little more innate for you.
Yes.
And then I went off and worked in Hollywood where all of those that work so well. Okay. So before we run out of time, I want to talk about, because you've taught at a university for years, and I would love to know, what have you noticed about how these younger generations, let's talk about Gen Z, how they think, how they write, how they learn, compared to when we were in school, or your older students? Because I know you've been doing this for a while, so I'm sure you've gone through a few generations.
It's very different right now, Tess.
Yeah.
And I'm, as my business grows, it costs me more and more money to teach, right? It's always cost me money,
Yeah.
but it costs me more, and so I get continually, man, is this really, like, it's expensive, and it's time consuming, and I'm torn right now, more on continuing than I have been in the past. I still am continuing, but more than I have in the past. Not because I'm not willing to spend the time and the money. That's actually the easiest thing to come to. It's I feel that I make less and less of an impact, and I'm deeply concerned about that. And I don't mean this in any arrogant way. I mean this more as just a hopefully what people will see as a potentially reasonable reflection. I probably have the best, sort of like student attention grades in the school. And if I'm not certain I'm making an impact, then we're going down we got to look at this whole thing differently. And I do think I have boys and I have women. I do not have girls. I do not have men. And the depth of thinking that would be required 15 years ago to make a solid argument in high school, we're now seeing in sophomores. That I mean, like the kids are really behind in terms of making sense of the world now.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Has that how it's been, or has it been since COVID?
COVID's a huge aspect.
But you saw this in 2018, 2019.
Yeah, more so.
Okay.
But COVID, it's been a decline, and COVID was a.
Okay, got it. I just wanted to. Okay,
right.
So we were going in this direction. COVID just moved us along a lot faster.
Correct.
Okay.
And part of it is just flat structural. That I'll just be honest with you, because I think it's important that people understand. I get paid $2,500 to teach for a full semester at the school that I teach at. Yeah. So if you did that, right, let's just say a full load is 4 courses, right? You'd never live in New York City,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean,
I don't know where you would live.
you wouldn't live anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, well, who takes that job? And the
Mm-hmm.
answer is not the person you want
Yep.
educating your children, right? And so we've kind of balanced the books on the backs of professors who can't handle the conversations uh, in the classroom. I think we see a lot of this economic issue at a place like Columbia University and the difficulties that they had a couple of years
Mm-hmm.
ago. That right, like if that's not my way of looking at things, I'm like, we got a microphone and we got a debate, and let's hear everybody out on their thoughtful understanding of these issues, not yelling and screaming at each other out here. That like we were incapable of having that discussion any better. And I think we have put people in classrooms who become more and more incapable of having the discussions better, and it sort of leads to this. And I think the students rightfully say, I'm not getting enough
Mm-hmm.
thoughtful attention, I'm not learning enough,
Yeah.
I'm not, and do this. And now there's internet porn 24/7, and there's video games 24/7. And are we potentially losing a generation of people to distraction because we aren't particularly good at helping them understand the quality of the lives that are available to them, because
Mm-hmm.
we often don't understand it? We do our own Donald Trump or Zohran Mandami versions of life and don't entice them to think well about life. We just start yelling about it,
Mm-hmm.
and then they say, why the hell would I pay for this? And I don't blame them. and
Yeah.
and so and so between all of those factors, I think we are closer now to graduating people who are not going to be competitive in a global landscape than we've ever been before.
Mm-hmm.
And it scares me. And I don't think we need to do what we've been doing, which is say study code or study STEM or study right.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more like, be a thoughtful person in the world. Do we have the structure to create thoughtful conversation in high school, in university, in the cafeteria, in the political realm, and the like? Those structures, I would say, they seem very, very far from trusting that the structures of the world are actually built in their favor.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't do a hell of a lot of good by not presenting the structures of the world or the thoughtfulness of the world in a way that they can understand and see that they can trust that their lives would be better if they were to engage in it rather than disengage in it.
Yeah.
And so my sense is we're kind of at that moment, and it's a moment. It's a real
Yeah.
moment. It's really happening.
Yeah. I mean, this is a whole other topic, the systemic and teaching and the layers of it. I mean, I think everything that you're talking about is so put this into any business, right? If you're not paying someone a livable wage, and so now for you it's charity, it's you're doing this, because it's important to you. But yeah, this is why you have these disconnected professors. Like when you look at the system, you can't blame anyone in the system for how they're reacting and how they're responding to it. But yeah, it is a huge problem that there's some other layers to this. And we don't have the time to get into that right now. I want to ask you a couple questions, like rapid fire a little bit. So I
Sure.
want to hear. So what's one thing that you wish every person who's writing anything, even a simple message what do you think everyone needs to do before you hit send?
I would yes. Before you hit send, before you write anything, start with actually writing, like typing,
Mm-hmm.
or just thinking in your head. My reflections on X, whatever I'm writing about. So my reflections on the fight we had last night are.
Mm-hmm.
My reflections on the reason that we shouldn't go ahead with the buy of this building are,
Mm-hmm.
right. And recognize that whether we are stating it consciously or just knowing it subconsciously, we are always sharing our understanding of something and not the thing. And so all writing improves the minute we do that. That you're always going to be sharing an observed reflection on something. It's baked into the human cake. If we recognize that before we write better.
So is this what you would recommend? Because that was my next question, which is if someone's listening and they want to be a clearer thinker, a clearer writer, right? What's one daily practice that you would recommend? Is it
Yeah, I would.
is
I
it
love
that?
that practice. I love
Just
that
sitting
practice.
down and saying my reflections are.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the things that we do that people really love, I'm happy to send a link out to anybody who wants this. Your people come in for free for 90 days. The is we do a prolific writing, and people really love this practice. And the practice is we put a prompt in a room. It's a Zoom room.
Mhm.
We put a prompt in a room, and then everybody writes around that prompt or around something else that they wanted to write about, but it's got a little access point through that prompt or whatever. And but it's really a practice of I'm going to run the world through me again from this space.
Mhm.
And my sense is if we all did that basically every day. We do that once a week. But if we all did that basically every day, I'm going to run the world through me again. I'm going to run. Why am I bothered by that politician's language? Let me just really reflect on that. Why am I
Mhm.
bothered by what that person said to me in a fight last night, or my spouse, or whatever? Why am I? Let me just run. Like if we get practiced at I am a sense maker, and I'm going to run my sense making through as stimulus for sense making over and over and over again, the world goes in our direction pretty quickly. We start to become much more optimized to make better sense of the
Mhm. Yes, it's very, 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 very hard. I have been in the class. It is really, 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 really hard. Really hard. So please, thank you so much for being here. Please plug whatever you'd like to plug, share. How can people find you?
Not a plug at all.
Okay.
The what I'll send you a link to 90 days free to our program. Anybody who'd be interested in joining us, that's just a gift from us. Not a plug at all. It's come and see if you like it. And then if people think it's useful to talk to me, it's bmorgan at thinkdeeplywriteclearly.com. And there's a little link on the website to book 15 minutes with me. So thinkdeeplywriteclearly.com. But not a plug. Happy to
Well, highly user test. What is that? Like host tested. I recommend it. I give it a thumbs up. So thank you so much for listening to the Gen Mess with Tess. Remember, we're not just fixing the mess, we're learning how to live in